to our community. So good morning, Acadiana. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today is Monday, October 12th, 2020. Mandy and I were just talking about we still have a little bit of time left in our hurricane season traditionally, but I want you all, when you take a moment in your own personal way, to just pray for calm waters in the Gulf. We don't need any more disturbances coming our way or anywhere in the Gulf. We've had enough. Let's get a break. So just you take a moment and just pray, do whatever spiritually you like to do to prevent the waters to be calm for the next couple of months. So tuning into the news that fits what just happened here with Hurricane Delta. Here's a story by Katie Gagliano. Headline, a little bit of a silver lining, Lafayette Parish residents see positives in Delta's aftermath. As Lafayette Parish residents surveyed Hurricane Delta's damage and set to work on storm cleanup, they expressed gratitude for silver linings in the help of family, friends, and neighbors. Hurricane Delta made landfall in southwest Louisiana about 6 p.m. Friday as a Category 2 storm, bringing top winds around 100 miles per hour that contributed to power outages for an estimated 680,000 people statewide and widespread tree damage, in addition to water damage in some areas. In Lafayette, 50,000 of LUS's 70,000 customers initially lost power, and 108,000 of 110,000 total Slemco customers in Lafayette and Acadiana lost power. Clico, Entergy, and other service providers also experienced widespread outages as fallen trees took down lines and damaged systems across the region. Cheryl Derrick tried to keep a sense of humor as she stood in her driveway Saturday morning, operating on no sleep as she survived the trees strewn across her yard, car, and roof. Someone said to me, "You always wanted a tree house." I do have a tree house now, Derek joked with a tree specialist surveying the damage. Even though I could see sunshine through my roof, I didn't get any water damage inside, so that's a little bit of a silver lining, she said. While Derek, her husband, their eldest son, their 4-year-old granddaughter, and Derek's in-laws listened to the wind howl, 3 trees fell. The first crashed onto her car, the second nearly took out a wheelchair ramp, and the third snapped off at the top and pierced the fuel span drive's home roof, she said. The group huddled in their living room as far from the falling trees as possible until the storm calmed, while Derek swiftly began filling insurance claims and texting a roofing repair specialist during the height of the storm. Between the filing claims, Derek said she was on high alert, listening to each change in the wind while praying the storm wouldn't catch under her damaged soffits and rip the roof off. Derek said her neighbors were on alert too, coming over with spotlights in the middle of the storm to survey damage and offer her family shelter and cleanup support. In the aftermath, neighbors kept her granddaughter entertained and gave Derek space to make plans. Friends and neighbors are so important nowadays. You have to rely on each other, Derek said. Down the road, Rhonda Babineau looked on as her husband, son-in-law, and grandson cleared down tree limbs from her mother Janelle Clark's roof. Hurricane Delta dropped a tree on the home's roof, damaged the roof of Clark's barn, and ripped up her front porch canopy. The mess made for an undesirable weekend of storm cleanup, but overall they were lucky, Babineau said. The house you can repair, the barn you can repair, but you can't repair a life. We're blessed to still have what we have, she said. Babineau and around 15 and 20 other family members packed into Clark's home for the storm, seeking sturdier shelter than their small house and mobile homes, she said. The family has weathered storms in Clark's home before, but the wind from Delta was rough, she said. It was a wild experience, very unnerving. Everyone was nervous. You could see the tension was high, Babineau said. Several miles away on Acorn Drive in Lafayette, Crystal Rocca battled a similar unnerving anxiety and tension Friday night. Rocca, who was pregnant, said hormones concern over Delta's slightly more eastern path and the general fear about how their home, which they lived in the last 2 years, would fare in the storm, were overwhelming her. Racker and her husband Andy, their 14-year-old son, and her mother turned to prayer and scripture readings to establish a sense of peace as the storm picked up. Even when the biggest storm fear, a tree falling on their home, came true, there was gratitude the damage wasn't worse and they were physically well, she said. Andy Racker said the tree took out an awning and pierced their attic and their garage, but missed the main living areas of their house. Even though the tree fell, I still believe God was at work because that tree could have fallen on us. We're alive. We're still able to function in our house with a generator. So we're thankful, he said. Neighbors and friends also turned out for the family on Saturday. Within 10 minutes of seeking cleanup help in a Facebook post, Krista Racker's boss was coordinating co-worker assistance, and neighbors were swarming from around the block, the couple said. The helpers sawed at the fallen tree, hauled wood into a pickup, and cleared debris swiftly. It was an incredible showing of compassion and community, the Racker said. You watch out for everybody, and that's what a community is, Krista Racker said. And other local news affected by the storm, free hot meals offered after storm by staff report. Brookshire's grocery store, the company that owns Super One Foods, is deploying a community kitchen and a team of employee partners to serve free hot meals to those who were affected by the Hurricane Delta and Acadiana, according to a statement from the company. Starting Sunday, teens began serving sausage biscuits for breakfast and hamburgers and hot dogs for lunch and dinner in the Super One Foods parking lot, while supplies last at each location. Lester Washington, store manager at the West Willow Super One in Lafayette, said they plan to serve at least 500 free meals on their location on Sunday. He and store workers Steve Wise and Brian Charlotte were serving up burgers and hot links Sunday afternoon under a hot sun. Washington acknowledged that because they were all from Lafayette, many of his workers had issues at their own homes, including fallen trees and limbs and lack of power, but they wanted to help their neighbors. It's all for a good cause, he said. And then looking over in the Gaydon area, Helping Hands, Southwest Louisiana residents find comfort in the second storm's aftermath by Megan Wyatt. Teresa Turhall had tears in her eyes as she picked up bagged lunches from Gaydon City Hall on Sunday afternoon. Although there were no more hot meals left, Turhall was beyond grateful for the sandwiches and fruit. After all, she wasn't looking out for her own needs. She was bringing food and water and ice to her neighbors. It's just so appreciated, Turhall said, breaking down crying. You don't know how much you appreciate it until you're going through it. Turhall, who has lived in Gaydon for 23 years, says she can't remember a storm with worse winds than Hurricane Delta, which made landfall on Cameron as a Category 2 storm just 6 weeks after Laura ravaged the Lake Charles area as a Category 4 hurricane. Delta didn't do damages to Turhall's home, although the neighborhood was littered with fallen trees and branches and remained without electricity Sunday afternoon. As Turhall approached her neighbor's house, bagged lunch in hand, Shelton Fuselier flashed her a huge smile. I got the craziest, best neighborhood in the whole country, he said. Fuselier, 76, has not eaten breakfast on Sunday, said he wasn't sure what he would have done without Turhall's generosity. Fuselier, who has lived alone since his wife died in 2003, has been cleaning up storm debris from his yard all morning before breaking for a sandwich. We sure could use help cleaning up, he said. It's a mess here. Turhall said she was inspired to check in on her older neighbors after the storm because of her time delivering hot meals for Meals on Wheels. She would eventually stop driving for the nonprofit organization and began helping those who live close to home, as she did Sunday after the storm. I quit because I started to see more people needing help than I've seen in my life, Turhall said. We've really been blessed that these two last storms weren't worse and that we've been able to help others. World Central Kitchen, the nonprofit that prepared and distributed meals in Gaydon on Sunday, evident in south central and southwestern Louisiana since Hurricane Laura made landfill. Volunteers with the organization plan to ramp up meals delivery and get on after seeing the demand Sunday afternoon. For lunch, the team served roasted and red pepper chicken with okra, rice pilaf, and salad. For dinner, they made barbecue pork over cheesy potatoes with a cranberry, almond, and green bean salad on romaine lettuce. We went through all 300 meals we made for lunch, said Josh Phelps, Director of Relief Operations for World Central Kitchen. We're going to increase to at least 500 for dinner, and now we know how to bring more for tomorrow. World Central Kitchen has about a dozen people stationed in South Louisiana. The team cooks meals from the kitchen at City Club and River Ranch and delivers them to regions in need. The nonprofit initially connected with City Club during Hurricane Barry last year. They're serving about 2,500 meals per day in the aftermath of Delta. A few weeks earlier, they were serving about 10,000 to 12,000 per day in the aftermath of Laura. Members of the Louisiana National Guard were also busy Sunday afternoon, passing out ready-to-eat meals and cases of bottled water to residents at the Get On Stuck Festival grounds. The Vermilion Parish site is one of 12 points of distribution in 5 parishes where residents can pick up supplies. As of Sunday morning, the National Guard had distributed more than 50,000 liters of water, 5,100 ready-to-eat meals, 2,200 bags of ice, and 6,900 tarps in the aftermath of Hurricane Delta, according to Staff Sergeant Dennis Riku, spokesperson for the Louisiana National Guard. Richard Mouton and Colonel Schneckseider stopped by the Get-On location for sustenance as they work to clean up their own homes and those around them. We're grateful and appreciative of this, Schneckseider said. It's really a really rough situation, but at the same time, we adapt to it. We've been through so many hurricanes, so we try our best to adapt to it and show our gratitude and appreciation for people who are helping us. There's a lot of people out there who don't have a home right now because of this. Friends spent the weekend helping out neighbors as they could by setting up generators and cutting and moving fallen trees. Using a chainsaw, they had fallen from limbs from Skip Gardner's yard Sunday afternoon. I used to be able to do this, Gardner said, but I don't take the chance of hurting myself anymore. Gardner, 75, was without electricity for about 4 days after Hurricane Laura. He's hoping power will be restored sooner this time around. I'll tell you what, though, he said, if I'm still around next year, I think it's time to invest in a big generator. Some 150,000 customers across the state were still without power Sunday afternoon as area utilities, contract workers, and industry partners sought to reconnect them to electricity in the wake of Delta. About 28,000 in Lafayette Parish was still without water. LUS, Lafayette Utilities System, with 70,000 total customers, counted 12,458 without power around 1 p.m. on Sunday. At one point, about 50,000 were without power. An LUS spokesperson said employees and industry partners continue to work through the weekend to restore power. More than 62,000 Slumco customers around Acadiana, many of them in Acadia Parish, remain without power Sunday afternoon. The company serves about 110,000 customers. Spokesperson Mary Laurent said Acadia Parish was hard hit, and as other utility companies release their contractors, Slumco is picking up the services to intensify efforts for its customers. She said 125 workers were joining Slumco recovery efforts Sunday. 100 were expected to join Slumco recovery jobs today on Monday. We will be doing this for a while, she said, a recovery that's expected to last several days. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Entergy, which serves much of the state, counts more than 138,000 of its 1.2 million customers in Louisiana without power as of 2 p.m. Sunday. Here's how other parishes were faring Sunday afternoon, according to Power Outage US. Calcasieu, 31,760, Cameron, 566, Jeff Davis, 9,579, Vermilion, 17,062, Acadia, $28,178. St. Mary, $18,981. New Iberia, $10,695. St. Martin, $10,993. St. Landry, $25,647. And Evangeline, $2,230. Okay, take a short break here and we'll read a couple of public service announcements. This is probably very, very important right now with requests for mosquito controls now available through Lafayette. You can call 311. Lafayette Consolidated Government is increasing mosquito abatement efforts in the parish following Hurricane Laura and now Hurricane Delta. An increase in mosquito activity is a common occurrence following a storm event. Citizens noticing an influx of mosquitoes in their area can now use the Lafayette 311 portal to request services. All submitted requests are routed directly to Mosquito Control Services, the mosquito control contractor for the parish. Another bit of community news because of the Hurricane Delta coming through on the weekend. The trash pickup and waste management pickup will be delayed 1 day. So if your neighborhood usually gets pickup on Monday, it will be tomorrow, Tuesday will be Wednesday, and so forth through into the weekend. So just know that if you need any information, you can call the Waste Management, look at their Facebook page, or contact Waste Management in Lafayette to find out exactly when they will be in your neighborhood to pick up trash. Like I said, it's been pushed back 1 day for each area in the Lafayette Parish. The Festival Awards Student Creative Writing Contest. Students in grades 3 through 12 from across the Acadiana area are invited to participate in a writing contest sponsored by the National Writing Project of Acadiana and the Festival Awards. Students can enter their original writing pieces in 3 writing categories, including poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction. Writing should be submitted through a supervising teacher or school facilitator online by sending them to HM Creamer, that's HMKREAMER at Louisiana.edu. Parent and guardian permission must be granted by filling out the student writing contest entry form. Supervising teacher or school facilitator should submit these forms electronically by the submission deadline as well. That deadline is the final deadline for online submissions will be Friday, October 23rd, 2020 by 11:55 p.m. And you can do this by email. Awards will be given for first, second, and third place winners. Contest winners will also receive an anthology publication of winning entries. So feel free to contact Dr. H. Michelle Creamer, Writing Competition Coordinator for Festival Awards Student Creative Writing Contest. And again, HM Creamer, that's HMKREAMER at Louisiana.edu if you have any questions or concerns. Okay, we're going to move back into our news. It's a story that hasn't appeared for a little while, but it's coming back into the news cycle. The Mouton statue removal hearing delayed by closing by Claire Taylor. Lafayette Parish Courthouse is closed Monday, forcing another delay in a hearing to remove the Confederate General Alfred Mouton statue from city property. Marilyn Castle, Chief Judge of the 15th Judicial District Court, issued an emergency order over the weekend, closing the courthouses in Acadia, Lafayette, and Vermilion parishes Monday in the wake of Hurricane Delta, which made landfall Friday in Cameron Parish and left wind damage and power outages in all 3 15 Judicial District parishes. City Parish Attorney Greg Logan confirmed Sunday that the hearing scheduled before Judge David Smith on Monday is postponed. A hearing on the statue's removal was postponed in August because Smith was ill. Mouton was the son of the state's 9th governor. He was born in Opelousas, attended the U.S. Military Academy in West Point, and later returned to Lafayette, where he became a landowner and slaveholder and supported the parish's laws limiting the assembly of Black people and their ability to move around. The United Daughters of the Confederacy Alpha Mouton Chapter donated the statue to the city in 1922 during the Jim Crow era. The statue was erected on city property on Jefferson Street and Lee Ave at an entrance to downtown Lafayette. The city pays to maintain the statue and surrounding property. When the city wanted to move the statue to the new City Hall on University Ave in 1980, the United Daughters took the city to court despite admitting in minutes from a committee meeting that the group had no standing in the matter. A settlement was reached in which the city agreed not to move the statue unless necessary for road work. The court granted a permanent injunction stopping removal of the statue. After years of pressure by some to remove the statue of the slave-owning Confederate general who was fatally wounded in battle, City Parish Council in 2016 considered the issue again, but the United Daughters threatened a lawsuit and the matter was dropped. In 2019, residents again rallied to remove the statue, forming the group Move the Mindset, which pushed the matter. In 2019, 16 residents, including Fred Prejean, and Move the Mindset sued to intervene in the 1980 United Daughters lawsuit, and early this year, the city also joined the movement to remove the statue. In other closings, some Acadiana public schools districts are opting to remain closed early this week as districts assess damage after Hurricane Delta. The Lafayette Parish school system will remain closed Monday, and district administrators will provide an update Monday afternoon if closures will extend longer. District spokesperson Allison Dickerson said in a Saturday text message that some schools are still without power and staff members need electricity to conduct full safety and damage assessments of the schools. Vermilion Parish Public Schools will be closed for at least Monday and Tuesday after a district survey revealed extensive damage at some schools, including broken windows, power outages, destroyed awnings, and ample debris on campuses, Superintendent Tommy Byler said in a Facebook video address Saturday evening. Most Catholic schools in the Diocese of Lafayette will remain closed Monday. A number of schools have decided to stay closed Tuesday as well. A list can be found at, let's see, what is that website? That's TIOLAF.org. South Louisiana Community College announces campuses will be closed Monday because of power outages. University of Louisiana Lafayette's campus will be open. Okay, let's see if we can get one more story before the half-hour break. Let's see. Okay, that's a big story. Well, okay, here's one we can talk about. We can't lose our momentum. Louisiana vows to rebuild by Rebecca Santana, Stacey Plaisance, Elena Durkin-Richer, and Bobby Cana Calvin from the Associated Press. Coming from Lake Charles, back-to-back hurricanes in the space of 6 weeks left parts of Louisiana blanketed Sunday with tarpaulins, mangled metal, and downed power lines, but not necessarily despair. Utility workers fanned out across the battled southwestern part of the state to restore electricity in the wake of Hurricane Delta, and residents began returning home along roads linked with debris and houses missing roofs. Some were grateful that the damage was not as bad as it could have been. A 70-year-old woman in Ivory Parish died in a fire, likely caused by a natural gas leak following damage from Hurricane Delta, the Louisiana Department of Health said Sunday. Louisiana officials also blamed the death of an 86-year-old man on the hurricane. St. Martin Parish resident died in a fire that erupted after he refueled a generator in the shed, Governor John Bell Edwards said. He said it didn't appear the generator cooled down before the man refilled it. A third storm-related death was reported in Florida, where a 19-year-old tourist from Illinois drowned after getting caught in a rip current caused by the storm off Destin, authorities said. Roughly 350,000 customers in Louisiana remained without power 2 days after Delta blew ashore in the town of Creole with winds of 100 miles per hour, slamming a part of the state still recovering from Hurricane Laura's 150-mile onslaught on August 27. Laura was blamed for 32 deaths, many of them caused in the storm's aftermath by carbon monoxide poisoning from generators. The remnants of Delta, meanwhile, dumped heavy rains on part of Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia. The storm was also blamed for washing out a railroad track and causing the derailment of a freight train in the Atlanta area that sparked a small fire and briefly forced some residents from their homes. 2 crew members were taken to a hospital for observation and later released. Claire Aber Marceau lost her home in Cameron Parish during Hurricane Laura, and said the community was hard at work rebuilding when Delta struck. We can't lose our momentum, she said, though she added there was utter devastation in the area. Meanwhile, who was born and raised in Cameron Parish is the director, Marceau, who was born and raised in Cameron Parish, is the director of the community's busy port, which hosts fleets of shrimp and crab boats and serves as a key link in the region's oil and gas industry. Vessel traffic was halted until port authorities and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers could take stock of the damage, sunken boats, utility poles, and other floats and filled waterways. We are still in the assessment phase, Marceau said, but we will be limping along as best as we can. Lynn Naquin and her 4 children fled to Fort Walton, Florida, ahead of the storm and returned home to Abbeville on a circuitous route to avoid flooded roads. Her home was spared major damage, though a fence was flattened. For the most part, I'm just glad I still have a job and a roof over my head, said Naquin, who works at a seafood market. Ernestine and Milton Wesley had decided to ride out Delta in their Lake Charles home damaged by Laura. As the wind rustled the rooftop above them, they grabbed it through the hole in the ceiling and held on tight. Water poured in, flooding their den. We fought all night long trying to keep things intact, Milton said, and with God's help, we made it. After blowing ashore, Delta moved over Lake Charles, a city where Laura damaged nearly every home and building. More than 8,000 Louisiana residents were evacuated because of Laura, who was still in shelters as of Sunday, Edwards said. Roughly 850 people were in shelters because of Delta. Before Friday's storm, the streets of Lake Charles were already lined with mountains of debris from the previous hurricane, soggy insulation, moldy mattresses, tree limbs, twisted metal siding, ruined family treasures. Lake Charles Mayor Nick Hunter estimated hundreds of already damaged homes took on water from Delta, which dumped more than 15 inches of rain on the city over 2 days. Delta, the 25th named storm of an unprecedented Atlantic hurricane season, was the 10th to hit the mainland U.S. this year, breaking a record set in 1916, Colorado State University researcher Phil Klotzbach said. Flooded water surged up to Wesley's family's front yard, and they were terrified it would pour inside, but it stopped short of the door. It carried with it bags of trash and muck swept up from the neighbor's pile of debris from the prior storm. The water was something else last night, Milton said. We've never seen it flood so bad out there, to the point I could have sworn out here last night. That's just how deep it was. All right, it's almost the half-hour mark, and we'll go to our day in history and the zodiac, or horoscope, as I like to refer to it as, and the funerals and the kitty on the area for the day. Today is Monday, October 12th. It's the 286th day of 2020. There are potentially 80 shopping days left in the year. Today's highlight in history: on October 12, 2002, bombs blamed on Al-Qaeda linked militants destroyed a nightclub in Indonesian island of Bali, killing 202 people, including 88 Australians and 7 Americans. On this date in 1492, according to the old-style calendar, Christopher Columbus's expedition arrived in the present-day Bahamas. In 1942, during World War II, American naval forces defeated the Japanese in the Battle of Cape Esperance. Attorney General Francis Biddle announced during a Columbus Day celebration at Carnegie Hall in New York that Italian nationals in the United States will no longer be considered enemy aliens. In 1957, the Dr. Seuss Yuletide tale, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, was first published by Random House. On this date in 1973, President Richard Nixon nominated House Minority Leader Gerald R. Ford of Michigan to succeed Spiro T. Agnew as Vice President. In 1976, it was announced in China that Huang Kufeng had been named to succeed the late Mao Zedong as chairman of the Communist Party. It was also announced that Mao's wife and 3 others, known as the Gang of Four, had been arrested. In 1984, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher escaped an attempt on her life when an Irish Republican Army, or IRA, bomb exploded at a hotel in Britain, England, killing 5 people. 1986, a superpower meeting in Reykjavik, Iceland, ended in stalemate with President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail S. Gorbachev unable to agree on arms control or a date for a full-fledged summit in the United States. On this date in 1997, singer John Denver was killed in the crash of his privately built aircraft in Monterey Bay, California. He was 53. In 2000, 17 sailors were killed in a suicide bomb attack on the destroyer USS Cole in Yemen. 2007, former Vice President Al Gore, the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, won the Nobel Peace Prize for sounding the alarm over global warming. 10 years ago, the Obama administration announced it was lifting the 6-month moratorium on deepwater oil drilling in the Gulf of Mexico imposed after the BP oil spill. 5 years ago, Princeton University Agnes Deaton won the Nobel Prize in Economics for work that helped redefine the way poverty was measured around the world, notably in India. 1 year ago, a Black woman, Atalania Jefferson, was fatally shot by a white Fort Worth, Texas police officer inside her home after police were called to the residence by a neighbor who reported that the front door was open. Officer Aaron Dean, who shot Jefferson through a back window, resigned in the days after the shooting and is charged with murder. He has pleaded not guilty. Looking at the birthdays today, singer Sam Moore, formerly of Sam and Dave, is 85. Broadcast journalist Chris Wallace, 73 today. Pop rock singer-songwriter James Siberry is 65. Jazz musician Chris Bodie is 58. Rock singer Bob Schneider from the B-52s is 55. Actor Hugh Jackman is 52. Actor Adam Rich is 52 also. Actor Kirk Cameron is 50 years old today. Olympic gold medal skier Bodie Miller is 43. Actor Brian J. Smith is 39. Actor Josh Hutcherson is 28. Now let's look at the horoscope, zodiac. If you are a Libra, intelligent reason, excuse me, take a sip of my tea here. Thank you for that refreshing pause. Okay, getting back to the zodiac or horoscope. Libras, intelligent reasoning when dealing with now in situations. Well, put your energy where it counts if you want to help others. Ready to offer honesty, tough love, and wise suggestions. Scorpios, use charm, not force. Be willing to make allowances if they will help you get what you want. A change of plans will lead to an unexpected opportunity. Sagittarius, live and learn. Don't rely on someone to take care of your responsibilities. Put greater emphasis on home, family, and better health. Fix whatever is troubling you and move on. Capricorn, be realistic regarding what you can accomplish. Not everyone will agree with the decision you make, but it doesn't mean you should deep six your plans. Romance is on the rise. Aquarius, consider how you handle and earn your money. Make adjustments to ensure you are getting the biggest bang for your buck. Physical fitness will help you overcome a frustrating situation. Pisces, change the way you live and it will improve your relationship with a loved one. Distance yourself from anyone trying to manipulate you or interfere in your life. Aries, push negativity aside, make a to-do list, and don't stop until you have finished every item. Your accomplishments will lift your spirit and soothe your soul. Celebrate what you achieve. Taurus, refuse to let sentimentality stand in the way of doing what's best for yourself. A change of attitude will influence partnership. Assess what's important and focus on your goals. Geminis, carry out changes at home that make you feel safe and secure. How you handle outside interference can dictate what happens to you professionally, financially, and physically. Cancer, opportunities within reach. Discipline mixed with innovative ideas will separate you from the pack. Last-minute changes will keep others guessing. Romance is in the stars. Leo, you'll face opposition if you share your intentions. Preparation will be vital if you want to gain support. Time and patience will pay off. Being impulsive will lead to a loss. And finally, Virgo, my birth sign. Make adjustments as you gain information. A change of attitude will surface when dealing with a friend, relative, or colleague. Make partnerships priorities. And as you know, the horoscope is an entertainment feature, not based on scientific fact. Funerals in the Louisiana area today feature Lindy Duplantis Sr. at St. Joseph Catholic Church at 11 a.m., Rose Lalonde at Our Lady of Queen of Angels Catholic Church at 3 p.m., and James LeBon, Liturgy of the Word and Evangeline Memorial Gardens Chapel at 11 a.m. Okay, getting back into the news, still talking about Hurricane Delta and Laura, unfortunately. Edwards, Operation Blue Roof to restart in Louisiana by Sam Carlin. After Hurricane Delta ripped off the blue top roofs installed after Hurricane Laura tore through southwest Louisiana, Governor John Bel Edwards said Sunday the state is returning to a federal program for storm victims to get the temporary roofs put on their home once again. Many of those tarps didn't make it through Hurricane Delta, Edwards said during a brief news conference before touring more storm-affected parishes. So going to turn that back on for the same 6 parishes that were eligible for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers program. Those parishes are Allen, Beauregard, Calcasieu, Cameron, Jefferson Davis, and Vernon. People can call 888-766-3258, or they can go to usace.army.mil/Blue Roof to sign up. Again, 888-766-3258, or go to usace.army.mil/Blue Roof. Edwards said the number of power outages have been cut in half from a peak of 688,000 outages to 348,609 as of noon yesterday, Sunday. While Delta cut a wide swath of damage to electrical grids, the damage was nearly as extensive as that brought by Laura, and the governor said it will not take as long to restore power this time around. National Guard troops were distributing supplies from staging areas in 5 hard-hit parishes, and search and rescue teams had done 4,000 searches and damage assessments. About 112 roads and 35 bridges remained closed Sunday because of storm damage. Delta made landfall Friday night, just 12 miles away from when Laura barreled into southwest Louisiana about a month and a half ago as a Category 4 storm, one of the most powerful ever recorded in the state. Delta, a Category 2 storm, didn't produce nearly the wind damage as Laura, but did inundate some areas with rain and storm surge. More than 9,100 Louisianians remain sheltered by the states of Louisiana and Texas as of Sunday, Edwards said. The vast majority of those were Laura victims staying in hotels, while about 840 were Hurricane Delta victims staying in state-run mega shelters in Alexandria and Bastrop. And the governor reminded residents to stay vigilant about the coronavirus after the storm forced the state to shutter its community testing sites. I know there are people who are fatigued by these disasters and emergencies, Edwards says. I will just remind you, COVID is not going to go away just because we're tired of it. Okay. Moving on to our next story this morning, new sales tax could be a March ballot by Claire Taylor. Lafayette Parish voters may be asked in March to approve a new sales tax that would help shore up depleted parish funds. Parish Council Chairman Kevin Nockwin at a Tuesday meeting last week announced a proposal will be introduced in November that may result in a tax election. State law requires the council to announce plans to introduce tax proposals weeks in advance. November is a deadline to get a tax on the March ballot. Contacted last week, Nockwin said he and others are working on a tax proposal, trying to determine how much is needed. It's definitely not going to be a property tax, he said. We're not asking for property owners to come up with anything. It appears the proposed tax will be a new parish-wide sales tax to shore up the parish general operating fund and supplement other taxes that aren't producing enough money, such as the courthouse complex fund for the parish courthouse and jail. Nockwin hopes the tax also will allow the parish to sell bonds for capital projects such as roads. We're trying to get away from property taxes, Nockwin said. Parish Council learned in August from Assessor Conrad Como that property values, primarily commercial property values, fell 6.6% this year, in part due to the COVID-19 pandemic. State law allows the council to increase the property tax in order to collect its same amount of money as last year. Council did so, but Mayor President Josh Guillory vetoed the measure because he did not want to increase two library taxes, a cultural economy tax, and a public health tax that funds the health unit, animal shelter, and mosquito control. Unable to muster the votes to override the veto last week, the council voted individually to increase all the parish property taxes to bring in the same money as last year, except the four taxes Guillory vetoed. The city council, which has more money in reserve than the parish, voted not to increase city taxes. Nockwin said the new proposal may provide a way to lower property taxes at some point. If the parish had more money in the general fund, he said, the council could have lowered millages the way the city council did. For years, parish taxes have generated less and less money as municipalities annex tax-producing businesses. Okay. Looking at the upcoming election, 2020, in the state constitution, abortion, taxes among 7 ballot issues. Amendments stem from bills pushed by lawmakers by Will Santel and Mark Ballard. Voters will decide 7 constitutional amendments on the November 3rd ballot, including questions on abortion, property taxes, and whether unclaimed property taxes deserve special protection. All 7 stem from bills approved by the legislature, and all 7 will be decided by majority votes. For more information is available at parlouisiana.org. That's parlouisiana.org/publications by date. And you can also go to the Par Louisiana site to look up the constitutional amendments that are on the upcoming ballot. But just to give you a brief outline, the measures are: Amendment 1, abortion. The proposal was approved by the Louisiana legislature in 2019 as courts in a dozen states were finding various anti-abortion measures unconstitutionally infringed on other individual rights. It was pitched as a way to ensure that if the U.S. Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, which makes the pregnancy termination procedure legal, then states will be allowed to decide the issue on their own, and Louisiana courts could enter that new world with the knowledge that the state's residents prefer forbidding abortions. Approval by a majority of voters would add language to the Constitution that could be interpreted as removing the right to an abortion or public funding for abortions. The area already has a law saying pretty much the same thing, but the proponents of the amendment argue that placing anti-abortion wording in the state constitution would preclude any state judge from ruling that a denial of access to abortions would conflict with an individual's fundamental rights. Louisiana legislators with the support of governors over the past quarter century, have erected a phalanx of legal hurdles that make getting an abortion in the state far harder than in most states. November 3rd election in Louisiana, voters' first chance to directly vote on whether they agree. This will show the world our constituency, said State Senator Katrina Jackson, the Monroe Democrat who sponsored legislation, that Louisiana is pro-life holistically. Claire Daniel, who has written extensively on politics surrounding reproductive rights, see passages as more harmful. If Amendment 1 passes, it will further erode bodily autonomy in a state that already has abysmal health outcomes for women. It will make future efforts to improve abortion access in Louisiana more difficult. A no vote will signal that the public rejects the status quo restricting abortion access. Daniel, who teaches at Tulane University's Newcomb Institution, said in an email statement. Amendment 2, oil and gas wells. For decades, Parish, Texas assessors in the oil and gas industry have bickered, often in court, over the complex way to calculate how much to tax wells that pump the product from under the ground. Amendment 2 is presented as a way to end that conflict. The actual crude oil and natural gas are taxed based on quantity and market price, called severance taxes. The Constitution provides the presence of oil and natural gas cannot be used to impact the value of property. A landowner pays property taxes based on the land and what might be on top of it, not the value of the minerals below. Plaquemines Parish Assessor Belinda Hazel, who appeared before the legislature to explain how the plan works, said assessors would consider revenues raised along with expenses and costs on oil field equipment, just as they would with apartment buildings. Amendment 3, which is a rainy day fund. Under current laws, the legislature can dip into a source of dollars collected called the Budget Stabilization Fund when revenue is short of expectations. Doing so requires support of 2/3 of the State House and Senate. The amendment would expand the list of reasons to use the money to include federally declared disasters, such as hurricane recovery. A separate state law spells out how officials would repay the money after federal emergency dollars arrive. It is to allow the state of Louisiana to stand up itself in a federally declared emergency and not wait for FEMA or other federal government agencies or anyone else to bail us out, Carter said. When we have those rainy days, we will be able to stand up for our people. Amendment 4, state spending. Louisiana has a spending gap on state dollars. The amendment would tighten that by imposing a state spending ceiling of 5% compared with the previous year. State aid for colleges and universities, public school teachers, and other state services rose sharply in the early 2000s. They're then plummeted starting around 2008 amid less than expected revenue. Amendment 5, taxes, like the operatic singers who want their cash now and the unambiguous commercials. Local tax entities could negotiate upfront payments in return for reduced property taxes in the future, should Constitutional Amendment 5 win approval from a majority of Louisiana voters on November 3rd. As an incentive for manufacturers, the state for the past 80 years has offered to basically forgive for a decade the property taxes on which local governments rely through the industrial tax exemption program. Governor John Bel Edwards changed the program by limiting the ad valorem tax abatement to 80% for 5 years, with an option for another 5 years, and give local governments power over the state's tax break decision. State Senator Mark Abraham, the late Charles Republican who sponsored the legislation underlying Amendment 5, said local governments need to be allowed to negotiate payment in lieu of taxes called pilot. School districts say they want the money now to build a library or some other asset rather than wait 10 years. The amendment wouldn't affect the tax exemption situation of other local entities. Amendment 6, property taxes. Louisiana's offer a property tax break for several groups, including those 65 and older who meet the income rules. The rates are frozen, which means they do not rise yearly for those 65 and older whose incomes do not exceed $77,000 That amendment would raise that cap to $100,000. Representative Stephanie Hilferty, a Republican Metairie House sponsor of the proposals of the plan, in part recognizes that people work longer today and that dual incomes are common. 65 is not the hard date for retirement for our seniors, Hilferty said. The expansion spelled out in the amendment would worsen the picture, they said. And finally, Amendment 7, unclaimed property. The state collects unclaimed property such as payroll checks, bank accounts, royalties, and deposits. It has lost money that belongs to individuals, businesses, and nonprofit groups. The fund totals about $900 million, according to State Treasurer John Schroeder's office. Critics says the change is needed because unclaimed properties are routinely swept into the state general fund, and that doing so left the state unable to pay claims this year and in 2018. The amendment would set up a special fund called the Unclaimed Property Permanent Tax Fund to house the assets starting July 1st. Moving on, driving is killing record numbers of women. Experts fear a spike related to COVID-19 by Emily Woodruff. On the last day of consciousness, Misty Luminous Babin held on to hope. I chose life. I choose life, the 38-year-old told her sister, husband, and doctor from inside the Oshner Medical Center ICU. But her sister, Amy Luminous Kalamusa, knew that it was a choice made too late. A former ICU nurse herself, she was trained to recognize signs on the end. Even after draining 3 liters of fluid from Babin's abdomen, her liver, mottled and scarred by years of heavy drinking, couldn't keep up. The fluid had started building up in her lungs, and she gasped for air. Without oxygen, her other organs began to fail. When I left that day, I knew that it would be the last time I talked to her ever, said Kalamusa. It was really hard to walk out that door. Babin died 2 days later, on June 14th of this year, after a long struggle with alcohol use disorder. Her family said the fight intensified in the last 4 or 5 years after a rough breakup. It may have been stealthy and prevalent than they ever realized. None of us knew, said Kalamusa, who wrote a movie and honest obituary in the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate about her sister's struggles. She hit it very well. I think she probably has been an addict for a long time. She lost control very quickly. With an average of 1,591 alcohol-related deaths from 2011 and 2015, Louisiana is tied for 10th among U.S. states on a per capita basis when it comes to people succumbing to the disease, according to a recent analysis of death certificates by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Across the country, alcohol-related deaths have risen by 51% over a period covering most of the past 2 decades, according to a study from the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism published earlier this year. The most alarming increase was among women. Deaths increased by 85% from 1999 to 2017. And amid all-time high levels of anxiety and economic uncertainty, public health experts fear that deaths like Babin's will spike in the coming years. New data examining how drinking habits have changed during the pandemic show drinking overall has increased by 14% compared with a year ago. In women, the increase was 17%, according to the peer-reviewed study published September 29th in JAMA Network Open by researchers from the RAND Corporation. Binge drinking in women, defined as 4 drinks over 2 hours, increased by 41% from 2019 to 2020. Drinking by women is sort of overlooked, said Michael Pollard, author of the JAMA study, and this points out that it's a real concern. We don't really have good scientific evidence that current alcohol use disorder treatment strategies we use are effective for women. The whole issue of women's drinking is a bit of a black box. It's now 55, which means the audio portion of our local news live will be going off the air on our TV stations, but you can continue listening. I have a couple more stories to read, sports related. You can continue to listen at our online streaming service, which is Cypress Street Radio, that's CYPRESS PRESS Street Radio. Just go to your browser and click in Cypress Street Radio. When you get to the front page, click the play button. Be able to hear the audio portion of today's broadcast, and you can also go to our YouTube station, which is AOC Community Media. So we will continue with sports, the Raging Cajuns, and during the many challenges of 2020. Cancellations, COVID-related issues, and the hurricane among the many challenges Napier's team has faced this season, by Kevin Foote. It hasn't been as bad as some of the high school football teams around the Acadiana area, which have awakened in the morning, not really sure if they're playing a game that evening or not. But still, life has been pretty crazy for the number 21 ranked UL Education's football team this season. First was the cancellation of all 4 non-conference games. Then came a ton of national attention to a historic road upset of Iowa State. After escaping much of the COVID-19 difficulties in August, finally hit UL's depth chart over the next 2 games, producing a thrilling overtime road win in Georgia State and a last-second 53-yard field goal triumph over Georgia Southern. That set up the game of the year at Appalachian State, only to have it postponed due to COVID issues with Mountaineers, leading to pushing up to the Coastal Carolina game to October 10th, only to have Hurricane Delta push that contest back to October 14th. Somewhere in 2020, it all makes sense. I think in general, it's just another week, said UL coach Billy Napier, whose Cajuns will host Coastal Carolina at 6:30 p.m. Wednesday at Cajun Field on ESPN. You kind of present the plan as you go. All of these changes may present adversity, but these kids are resilient. They show up, they work, and we're thankful that our kids have that attitude. The long list of potential obstacles to a team's focus doesn't even include the constant COVID-19 tests necessary that could produce heavy damage to the starting lineup multiple times each week. Think about our lives outside of football. All the major curveballs can be a mind-numbing process. I think we've lived and learned a lot through the things we've been through, whether that's contract tracing or actual positives, Napier said. In general, I think education relative to COVID-19 is a huge part of what we're doing each and every day with our players. After a summer of being warned what the 2020 season could bring, apparently the players have just accepted having to roll with the punches. We kept going, UL junior tight end John Lumpkin said of the recent schedule changes. We kept pushing. Doesn't matter to our opponents. We have to focus on ourselves. We have to execute at a high level, no matter the opponent. As crazy as this season has been, newcomer graduate transfer offensive tackle Zach Robertson is a shock. Napier's program has displayed the organizational skills and depth to effectively deal with the scheduling adversity. My impressions, especially from camp, I could see from a mile away that we had for one depth, and I could see that we had a lot of talent on our team, Robertson said. We have a lot of physical guys, not to knock any program. Definitely had one of the best programs I've ever been around in terms of depth, in terms of how guys are playing on both sides of the ball, and even special teams. Of course, that doesn't mean Napier on the coaching staff is thrilled with all of his team's execution through the roller coaster ride. Obviously, we've done a lot of in-house quality control, and maybe where we can execute better, what players can play better. Napier said we've had a unique set of circumstances relative to who we've played and who've been available for the game, and certainly our execution level is part coaching and part just managing the situation you have week to week. Much of the expected improvement is on offense. When the details can't be ignored, Napier continues to emphasize all the opportunities his team has seized to get big picture life perspective through all the chaos. And I think at times we all need a big cup of perspective about the quality of the life that we do have, Napier said. Some of these simple things have gotten away. I've tried to challenge myself to see this, think from a big picture standpoint and not get negative and not complain. And realize that even the life we're living right now is pretty dangerous, pretty doggone special compared to a lot of people out there. Okay, it is 10 a.m. It's time to wrap up the news and news broadcast for this morning. I did have a story about LSU, but I'm sure that sports story will pop up again later in the week. I want to thank you for listening in to Local News Live. We present this to our
my friends.
visually impaired community and to our community of people out there who don't have access to the news cycle.
Take care, Bruce. Steven, your backyard did okay?
Just hitting us, and
that's what your
power
name on my
still being
phone
out in
is.
some
Skip, your
areas of the
backyard
city
came out all right?
and the parish.
Yeah, actually, the city just came and
appreciate you
picked up all that
tuning in if
debris I
you're
stacked up
listening
out front.
and getting all the news.
Yeah, I didn't even
up
have to
to
cut it
date
down, so I'm pretty
on what's
happy
going
about
on.
that.
Again,
Now I
we
just
offer
got
the
to
service every
finish
Monday through
raking
Friday
leaves
from
and all
9
that
a.m. to
shit.
10 a.m.
Yeah, but you didn't lose the roof.
My
Matt,
name
how'd
is
you
Bruce
make out?
Cohen, has always been Bruce Cohen, and I implore you
That's
to
tied
be
up.
safe,
Mandy, how'd you make out?
especially now after the hurricane. Be healthy
They're dealing with Bruce.
and be smart. We still have COVID-19 raging around the country.
I didn't hear my
Just
name,
a
Ed.
couple days ago,
We
it was
fared pretty
reported
well. I lost power
over
for a little
30
while
states,
overnight, and I got a lot of
have reported
tree
spikes,
trash in my yard. But
including
other than that,
Louisiana.
not too bad. Some of my neighbors
just
got
be
it harder.
careful out there. Be smart. Wear your
Okay,
mask.
so you
Do
guys all
everything
did
we've
well
been
then,
doing for the
Mandy.
last 6
We'll
months.
get back to Mandy. She's
And
shutting
let's,
down Bruce.
stop the spread.
A lot of people out this morning,
kind to
and
each other.
because it's
Have a
Columbus
great
Day,
morning.
unless there's something on fire we need to worry about, I'm going to declare the Columbus Day AOC holiday, I think.